You know that feeling, right? You're staring at a huge project and all you can see is chaos. Well, today we're going to explain a seriously powerful method that turns that messy to-do list into a crystal clear step-by-step roadmap for success.
Oh yeah, we've all been there. Trying to launch a product, plan a big event. Heck, even just moving houses feels like that sometimes. It can feel like pure chaos. But what if I told you there's a way to see the entire path forward with total clarity before you even take the first step? Well, you can.
Okay, let's start with a really simple but super crucial distinction. Making a cup of tea? That's just a task. But throwing a whole tea party? Now that is a project. See the difference? It's a bunch of different interconnected tasks, all for one big goal. And managing how they're all connected, that's the whole ballgame.
So, how do we tackle this project problem? Well, the first step is always to break it down. We got to look at its smallest, most basic pieces.
The fundamental building block of any project is what we call an activity. Just think of it as one single separate action. So for our tea party, an activity isn't something vague like get ready. No, it's way more specific than that.
So for our tea party, we've got things like procure materials, prepare snacks, and set the table. This gives us a nice list, which is a great start, but it's missing something absolutely critical. It doesn't tell us the order of things.
And that right there brings us to our next huge concept, dependencies. See, activities almost never happen in a vacuum. We've got to figure out exactly how they're all linked up. The fancy term for this is a precedence requirement, but honestly, it's just common sense. You can't serve tea if you haven't made the tea yet, right? So prepare tea comes first. That's the predecessor. Serve tea comes after. That's the successor. This super simple rule, it's the foundation for everything we're about to build.
Okay, so this little diagram here, this is basically the alphabet of project management. The circles, we call them nodes, are like moments in time. The arrow connecting them, that's the actual work, the activity itself. So it's super clear. Activity A has to be totally done before activity B can even think about starting.
All right, now for the fun part. Let's take all those activities and all those dependencies we just talked about and build a visual map of the whole shebang. We're going to create what's called a network diagram.
Check this out. This is where it gets interesting. We're seeing how multiple things can feed into one activity. To set the table, that's activity E, you need two things done first. The snacks have to be ready, that's B, and the tea has to be prepared, that's D. See how both of those arrows point to the start of E? Our map is really starting to come together now.
And there it is, the complete network for our little tea party. Look at that. What was just a messy to-do list is now this beautiful, logical visual flow. You can see things you can do at the same time and things that have to happen one after the other. This is our blueprint. This kind of clarity is what stops stuff from getting missed or mixed up.
So we've got our map. Now it's time to unlock the real secret to managing a project's timeline. Seriously, if you remember one thing from this, make it this. We're about to find the critical path.
Okay, we've graduated from the tea party. Let's level up to something a bit more complex. Take a look at this network. Each activity now has a time attached to it, in weeks. And the big question is, what's the absolute fastest we can get this whole thing done? How do we even figure that out?
Here's the trick, and I know it sounds a little weird at first. We find the longest path through the network. Yeah, the longest one. But think about it for a second. The whole project isn't done until every single path is done. So it's the longest chain of connected activities that actually sets the pace for the whole project. In this case, that path is B, E, F, H. Add them up and you get 17 weeks. That is our critical path.
And here's why that is so incredibly important. Any delay, even one day, on an activity that's on that critical path will delay the entire project. These activities have zero slack. And slack is just a fancy word for wiggle room. It's the extra time a non-critical task has before a delay on it starts causing problems for the final deadline.
So if you look here, B, E, F, and H have zero slack. They are locked in on that critical path. But check out activity G. It's got 3 weeks of slack. This is the superpower this method gives you. It tells a project manager exactly where to put their attention. If G is a little late, no big deal. But B has to start on time, no excuses. This is how you use your limited time and energy where it matters most. Of course, the real world is always a lot messier. Timelines aren't always set in stone,
And sometimes your boss tells you that you just have to finish faster. So let's take a quick look at how this whole system deals with the messy stuff, like time, cost, and uncertainty.
So everything we've talked about so far is part of what's called CPM, the critical path method. It's awesome when you know exactly how long things are going to take, but what if you don't? Like, say, a research project where you have no idea what you'll find. For that, you'd use a different tool called PERT, which is built from the ground up to deal with uncertainty.
So instead of just one number for how long something takes, PERT makes you think of three. What's the best case scenario, the absolute worst case, and what's the most likely outcome? Then it does some math to find a weighted average, giving you a much more realistic timeline when you're dealing with a lot of unknowns.
Okay, let's go back to our 17-week project. What happens when your boss walks in and says, "That's not good enough. I need it in 15 weeks." Well, you can't just magically make it happen. You have to do something called crashing the project.
Crashing is a really simple trade-off, actually. It's time versus money. You throw more resources at a problem. Maybe you pay for overtime or hire more people to make an activity go faster. But it's always going to cost you more. The secret is you only crash the activities on the critical path, and you start with the one that gives you the most bang for your buck. That's how you make smart calls when the pressure is on.
All right, so we've journeyed from total chaos to a super structured plan. Let's wrap it all up and boil it down into a simple 3-step blueprint you can use for anything.
Honestly, it really is this simple. Step 1, break your big goal down into tiny individual activities. Step 2, map out the flow. Draw that network diagram to see how everything connects. And Step 3, find the longest path through it all. That's your critical path, and that is where you pour all your focus.
And look, this whole way of thinking isn't just for giant construction projects or building software. It's a mindset that brings clarity to any big, messy goal. So I want you to think about the next big thing you want to accomplish. What's its critical path? What are those key steps that just have to happen in order with no delays? If you can find that, you've basically found your roadmap to success.